doesn't love a good theme? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Kimmie in my apartment. Sorry, I have to make like a conscious decision to not say I'm Kimmie and this is my attic. But anyway, I'm Kimmie. This is my apartment. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about themed eyeshadow palettes. I'm going to be ranking my themed eyeshadow palettes. I have 18 of them, so I will go from what I think is the worst to what I think is the best. And let me just give you a little bit of background. If you watch my channel, you know how much I love eyeshadow. Eyeshadow palettes are one of my favorite things. And you also know that I kind of took off last year. I kind of took off from life. Definitely took off from YouTube. I took off from makeup. I just needed to take a step back. It was one of those things where it was just going day to day. And honestly, guys, the world isn't going to stop if you take breaks from these kinds of things. Makeup, decorating, stuff like that. If you are going through something that's tough and you really just need to take a time out, do it. But that's another video. Today, we're talking about eyeshadow palettes. Let me stay focused. Okay, guys. Yes. So, with that said, the point is I really didn't purchase anything last year. So I don't know really a whole lot about what came out last year. Most of these palettes are on the older side. I did pick up a few palettes this year. Nothing like I used to buy, but I picked up a few. With that said, guys, my collection is still out of control. If someone like me, who's not a professional YouTuber, has 18 themed palettes, I don't even know how many regular palettes I have. I don't even wear makeup every day. I don't know. I went through a phase, and it's not really a phase because eyeshadow palettes still make me really happy. But with that said, going forward, I am going to be buying less of them. Probably not going to be doing as many reviews as I used to do on this channel, especially with eyeshadow palettes. You might see a little bit of change to this channel starting in January. I have a couple of ideas, and I'll still be doing my eyeshadow palette reviews because, like I said, I do love them, but I won't be doing as many of them. And I really, really want to minimize my collection. So I will be decluttering all my makeup, but I'm actually starting with the palettes because that's what I have the most of, and it's also what I have here. So most of my makeup is actually in storage, but I did bring my eyeshadow palettes with me when I came here. So I do have them with me, and my plan was to rank my neutral palettes. So I think I'm going to do 3 videos, because one video will be way too long where I rank most of my palettes are neutral. So I was gonna rank cool neutrals, warm tone neutrals, and rosy tone neutrals. And when I was going through my palettes, I realized that I have a few that really don't fall into that category, but they're like more like themed palettes. And I thought to myself, why not rank my theme palettes? Because that's a category also. And even with that, I still have palettes that don't fall into any category, which I'll probably still talk about when I do the declutter. But the point is, when I do get to the declutter, I won't go into so much detail about all these palettes because my declutters, I feel like they're always a little bit too long. So instead, I'm gonna go through them in my ranking. That way, when I get to the declutter, I'll pretty much have a good idea of what I'm gonna declutter, what I'm not gonna declutter, and I can post these videos if you guys want like more information about the palettes. So with this said, yes, unless there is some unforeseen event, I will be doing an eyeshadow declutter New Year's Eve. My third one, it's become a little bit of a tradition, my New Year's Eve eyeshadow palette declutter. So if you thought you had no plans for New Year's Eve, you were wrong. You have an eyeshadow declutter to watch. So yeah, guys, I've done it every year except last year, of course. So I am gonna do it again this year. I wasn't sure if I really had enough to declutter, but oh my God, I have more than enough, and it's gonna be a pretty big declutter because I'm going to get rid of a lot. I always say that, and then the day comes and I'm like, oh my God, no, but this is why I'm doing these rankings. So I have a really good idea in my head of what I want to keep and what I don't. So with that said, guys, let's go ahead, let's rank my palettes. One more thing, real quick, themed palettes. What do you think of them? Do you think the formula is the same in your themed palette? When I say themed palettes, let me tell you what I mean. I mean like, I guess you could say like any eyeshadow palette is like a themed palette today, but I'm talking real themes like cartoons or television shows, food, holidays, stuff like that. You know, where there's an actual theme, where you might have purchased it just because of that theme. I have one that I'm stretching. One doesn't really fall into any of those categories, but I didn't know where to put it. It's not a neutral palette and whatever. I hate odd numbers, so I had to make it 18. Anyway, Do you guys feel like your theme palettes have the same formula as your non-theme palettes? I find some of them do and some of them don't. Sometimes I feel like the theme palettes just aren't as good. I find this especially with ColourPop and Sigma. Not all ColourPop theme palettes, especially with the exception of Star Wars. I think Star Wars is phenomenal. Their Star Wars palettes are so good. But I have purchased some theme palettes in the past that I did not think were as good as their regular formula. And Sigma, absolutely. In fact, I've decluttered all of my themes. I skipped Beauty and the Beast because I was not paying any attention to makeup when it was released. Probably wouldn't have picked it up anyway. And I was a little tempted by The Little Mermaid, but in the end, I decided not to get it because I got Cinderella and I got Alice in Wonderland, and I was disappointed in both of them, so I ended up decluttering them. Some palettes I will keep if I like the packaging or I like the theme, but I was so disappointed in them. No, I got rid of both of them. I think the Sigma formula is so superior to what they used in those two palettes. But let's face it, guys, if you're anything like me, you know that you have purchased palettes just because of the theme or just because of the packaging. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said in the beginning, we all have a good theme. I'm just curious to know if you agree with me that sometimes these theme palettes, they are not as good as the non-theme palettes. Let me know in the comments below what you think, if you think it's true about ColourPop, if you think it's true about Sigma, and if you think it's true with any other brand. And with that, guys, let's go ahead. We're ranking 18, starting from the bottom, going to the top. I'm actually gonna do this in 3 groups. Let's do it. Okay guys, in at number 18, this is Bridgerton by Pat McGrath. So this one ranks dead last. To be honest with you, I do not see what the hype is with Pat McGrath. I think it is such an overrated brand on YouTube and on Instagram and just by influencers in general. It's way too expensive for what it is. I just don't like it. I have never, and it's not even like it's so expensive, but I think it's so good. I have never purchased anything that I have been blown away with, and this was no different. So this is the Bridgerton palette. What is this called? Netflix. It says Netflix in the back because Bridgerton is on Netflix. I don't even know what this was called. Is it just called Bridgerton? I think it's just called Bridgerton. Bridgerton palette, eyeshadow palette. They did 2 of these. This was the original, and then they came out with the second one, which people said was not as good. The second one was pink. I didn't buy it, but it was like in a pink package. I didn't even think this one was good, and this is one of those palettes that I did do a video on. This palette's discontinued, so I'm not gonna post the video. It's still on my channel if you wanna watch it, but this is one of those palettes where when I originally used it, I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was that great, but I didn't think it was that bad. This shade right here is what makes it. And I think this is one of, what do they call the standout shades? It's called something. What do they call these shades? Special shades. I don't know. There's a name people use for them where they're like the special shades that like, I don't know. They're okay. This shade, what is it? I think it's Diamond in the Water. No. This shade, I think it's, what is it? You gotta like match it up. Iconic. I don't even know how you say it. Whatever. This is the good shade. This one right here, this shade was very good. And I thought if you kind of put it on any of these shades, it made them look really nice. But this is one of those palettes that the more I used it, it didn't grow on me. It actually got worse. I actually started to really dislike this palette. And Pat McGrath itself is what I would call like a gray brand as far as cruelty-free status. I know this isn't about that, but when trying to research if this brand is cruelty-free, it just feels to me there's a lot of unanswered questions. Usually when there's a lot of unanswered questions, it means no. And I don't purchase from any brands that are not cruelty-free. And I don't mean parent companies. I mean brands that actually test on animals. I believe the last time I looked up Pat McGrath, it was that they did test on animals when it was necessary in that country. There's so many ways around that. It's just not necessary. I have really nothing good. I might be the only one in the world, but I have nothing good to say about this brand. I think this palette sucks. Ranks dead last. Goodbye, Pat McGrath. I am not purchasing any more of the products. Anyway, and at number 17, how appropriate for this time of year. It's almost Halloween. This is the Chucky palette by Glamlight. This palette is still available. I do have a video on this one. I will post it down below. This is Crazy in Love. I believe this was called Crazy in Love. I did a video with this with my doll, my Molly May doll. She's like this old doll I have from the 1800s. People think she's haunted. I don't know. Maybe she is. Anyway, yeah, I did a video with this one. And yeah, Crazy in Love. Oh yeah, it's right here. It says it on the top, this actually says Crazy in Love. It's hard to read. But it's a picture of Tiff and a picture of Chucky. And I believe, I went on the website the other day, Glamlight's website. They have a whole bunch of Halloween palettes now. They have like Freddy Krueger and Jason, which is what, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. I just watched that last night. I should know that. And this one is still available. This one is still available. So actually, I think that's kind of cool. I was going to declutter this because honestly, I don't like this palette. I don't think it's very good. The color story isn't bad, but I just didn't like the way it performed. If my memory serves me right, I just didn't care for it. They have a second Chucky palette called the Good Guy palette, which Chucky was a good guy. That was like the name of the doll. And it's like a little bit bright. Oh, it's very bright. It's much brighter. It's very brighter. It's very brighter. It's much brighter palette. It's like yellow, and I think he was in a yellow box, so I can't speak to that one, but I didn't care for this one. But I actually think now I'm going to hold on to it as a collector's item because I am planning. I'm such a horror movie fan. If you watch my channel, you might know that. I think I am going to pick up the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Street palettes just to have them. And I think there's a Halloween palette on there too. Like I think they did like a whole horror movie thing, which is so cool to me. I don't care if I get them by Halloween because I'm just gonna buy them to keep them to like have a collection of them. So I think I'm actually going to pick them all up so that I have the whole collection. So I am going to hold on to this for collector's purposes, which is nothing wrong with that. Like I said in the beginning, sometimes we do that. We buy things just to have them as collector's items. The palette though itself wasn't so good. I didn't think so anyway. So that comes in at number 17. And things get kind of close now. Honestly, most of these palettes I wouldn't say are bad. A lot of these palettes are discontinued, and I am going to be, I will mention that, but in at number, as I go, but in at number 16, here's a good example, the ColourPop theme palette that I felt short. I fell short. This was the Dreams Come True palette. Did a video on this one, but I just looked it up. It's not available anymore, so I'm not gonna post it. I'm not gonna like link it down below. This was a Snow White. Obviously, this was a Snow White palette. It was cute. I actually did like the packaging. I really like when ColourPop does this cardboard packaging, and I thought that this whole Once Upon a Time, like, I guess this is how the story, I know the story starts Once Upon a Time, but it says there was a princess named Snow White, blah, blah, blah. My grandmother, people used to say she looked like Snow White. She had like very, very black hair. She was very, very pale. And this Snow White was actually one of her favorite movies, which is kind of why I purchased this, and actually why I might still keep it, because like I said, when you buy a theme palette, you're buying it for a reason. You're buying it because it takes you back to something, or it's something that you really love. With the exception of Bridgerton, I don't know why the hell I bought that. I never saw the show. I hate, whatever. Anyway, I might hold on to this, like I said, because it reminds me of my grandmother, but the palette itself, the color story is like kind of, I mean, I understood the color story because it's Snow White, like the color story screams Snow White, so they did get that, but it was a little difficult to come up with looks like using all the colors, or you could just do it neutral, but then you would just be using like a neutral palette. Anyway, probably if you're very, very good at eyeshadow, you didn't have that problem, but I also didn't think the formula was as great as other ColourPop palettes. I'm on the fence if I will keep this one, but if I do keep it, it will just be because I kind of have an attachment to it. I probably will keep it. I remember watching this movie with my grandma when I was young, so I probably actually will keep this one, but only for that reason. I don't think it's a very good palette. If you watched my rankings before, you know I can't count for shit. 18, 17, 16. Okay, we're on number 15. Now this is the one that I was stretching because it's not really a theme, but this is Summer Vibes. This is Summer Vibes by Give Me Glow. It's a summer theme. I had no idea where to put this one because it's not really a neutral palette. And I don't have enough palettes to rank color. I mean, I don't have enough colorful palettes to rank colorful palettes, so I just put it here at 18, 17, 16. At 15. Guys, I might have more than I think. I'm so bad at counting for some reason, and I'm working science. I was like, my major was basically science and math, but I can't do basic counting, and I can't remember. I can never remember where I am. All right, 15. So yeah, Summer Vibes palette by Give Me Glow. There's nothing necessarily wrong with this palette. I don't really like the color story, but it does give you like summer vibes. So I guess that's what its job is. They do really, really, really beautiful shimmers, but honestly, I have a couple of Glam Glow palettes, and not Glam Glow, Give Me Glow. I have a couple of Give Me Glow palettes, and I think they have an excellent formula. I think they have a truly superior formula, which really stands out in some of their palettes, like their pastel palette, and even a few that I have coming up later on this ranking. But this one just falls short. It's not as good as the others. It really isn't. If you've used the pastel palette, the other one I'm going to talk about later is Christmas Morning. You've used that one, you know that this one just isn't as good. And so this one's not bad, but as far as Glam Glow, it's just, excuse me, as far as Give Me Glow, it falls short. And so it is number 15. Now at number 14, I have the Jeffree Star palette. This one was called Cremation. Is it called Cremation? I think it might be called Cremation. This is the does it say on the back? I'm pretty sure it's called Cremation. Oh, Cremated by Jeffree Star Cosmetics. So a lot of people hated this palette. They said it was just an all gray palette, which it is. But I actually loved this palette. I kind of thinking I probably should have ranked it higher because I actually loved this palette. I just haven't used it in a really long time, and I am going to declutter it. I'll tell you why in a second. But I'll tell you first that when I bought this palette, I had no idea who Jeffree Star was. This was one of the first palettes I bought when I got into makeup just because it spoke to me. I really liked it. When I first got into makeup, I only knew basic makeup. I didn't know makeup from YouTube or makeup from creators or influencers because I didn't know any creators or any influencers. I never watched YouTube in my life. So I only knew like your basic brands, your mainstream brands, rather. I didn't know independent brands or influencer brands. So when I purchased this, I didn't know who Jeffree Star was. I thought this palette was so cool. Like, I just loved it. I don't know, guys, it just spoke to me. And I wore this palette and only this palette for almost a year. There's really a lot of looks you can do with this palette. I mean, they're all kind of smoky gray looks, but they go with everything. And the formula in here is so, so good. I mean, well, it's not as good now as it used to be because I've had this palette a fairly long time. This was before my channel. I'm going to say I've had this palette probably 5 years. Whenever it came out, that is how long I have had it. But I loved it in its day. I really, really did. It was one of my favorites. And I can still remember like coming out of this is going to sound weird because it's palette's called Cremated, and it actually is like the shades are named after like death, like Last Respects, Rest in Peace, Death Certificate, Gravedigger. But I do have a lot of fond memories of this palette and coming like out of my depression and like around, and I don't know. The reason I'm going to get rid of it though is because I did lose my dad this year and I just not feeling this theme anymore. I'm just not. And on top of it, I just want to get rid of it now. But it's on the older side. I thought this was a really good palette, but I am going to be decluttering it in my declutter. Even though this isn't a declutter video, I feel the need to tell you what I'm going to declutter. So that was what, 14? Okay guys, so at number 14, I actually have The Witching Hour by ColourPop. This was their second Hocus Pocus release, their second out of 3, I believe, unless there was another one that I missed. Like I said, I missed last year, but I believe there were 3. I had the first one, I decluttered it, I didn't care for it. I thought it was one of those palettes where the formula just wasn't as good, although I thought the packaging and the color story was very, very good as far as Hocus Pocus. I thought they captured it. This one, when it came out, I remember thinking to myself, they just basically made a palette and put 3 witches on it and called it Hocus Pocus. This one did not, even though I'm not a Hocus Pocus fan, this one I didn't feel really captured the essence. And then they did a 3rd one, which I think was similar to the first one, but that one I didn't get. This one I didn't exactly purchase. I got this in a mystery box. I did make a video of it. I remember that mystery box so well because there were Powerpuff barrettes in it. Powderpuff Girls barrettes in the mystery box. And I remember saying that I would be taking deductions for bullshit. That one got a big deduction. Honestly, I'm not a fan of mystery boxes. You always get some crap in there. But I was very happy with the palettes. They did give you a few palettes, I think, if my memory serves me correct. So it was a little bit redeeming. And one of the palettes that they gave you was this. And since it was a Halloween mystery box, I thought it was really appropriate to give you this Hocus Pocus palette, which has since been discontinued. And I have to tell you, I liked this a lot more than I thought I would. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought, I don't know if I like these colors. I don't know if I like them together. There was just something like off about it. Like there's like purples and this like kind of green color, and then there's like these warm neutrals. I don't know, it just wasn't doing anything. But the formula of this is actually very good, and this palette is really fun. So to be honest with you, all of my Halloween palettes, this one, Chucky, I think I'm going to display for now, because I love to display makeup, and I have not been displaying any makeup, and since Halloween is in 2 weeks, I'm going to be displaying these. Am I going to declutter this one? Probably not. Again, I'm really into Halloween. I like Halloween themed palettes. I'll probably keep this one. And this one is actually not bad. Like the formula on this I think is pretty good. It's a lot better than I thought it was. So probably keep it. And it's at number 14. And then at number 13, before we get into the top 12, I have the Darth Vader palette, again by ColourPop. I think that ColourPop's Star Wars genre, if you will, is very good. They are some of their real standout palettes. I have more of them on this list. So this is actually the one that ranks the least, but even with that said, I think it's very good. This is a cooler toned palette. I don't get a lot of use out of this color story. It's just, I don't know. It's just not something I gravitate to, but if I did need a gray, I might dip into it, especially since I am getting rid of my Jeffree Star. They have like some nice grays down here. I really like this shimmer. It does have a Super Shock. It feels like it's not performing like it used to. One thing about the Super Shocks, I feel they dry up relatively fast, but it did have a Super Shock. It does have a matte glitter, which I don't like up here. But all in all, I thought this was a pretty strong palette. This one is still available, and like I said, their Star Wars collection is phenomenal. This one is probably the one that I like the least, but it's still pretty good. And with that, let's go into my top 12 themed palettes. Guys, I told you I can't count, and I already lost count, so let's just start. I have 11 more, okay? I have 11 more, so hopefully this will be a little bit easier for me, okay? I can count to 11, so let's kick it off. 11, at 11, we have the Chocolate Martini. So this one is a theme palette, and it's also a neutral palette. So you'll see it again. I'm sorry that it's like glaring. So you will see it again. I did a video on this palette when these first came out, but these have long been discontinued, so I'm not going to post it. This was the Dark Chocolate Martini by Glamlight. Oh my God, do you remember when these came out? The packaging was so cute. Glamlight, I don't know if they still do because I haven't purchased anything from them from a while, but they used to have this over the top, insane packaging. It was like huge, it was ridiculous, but it made you feel good. It made it feel fun. It made you feel like you're really getting something. Like, remember they had, what was it, the ice cream truck or the cake? I don't remember. It was like the sprinkles were like flying everywhere. It was really cool. And this was no exception. This one had really cute. It came in like a bottle, right? Or like the shape of a bottle because it was a martini. There were 4 of them. There was the green one, the reddish one, or the pinkish one, whatever. There was this one. And what was the other one? Purple. The purple was wine. I remember I almost picked that one up, but this was the only one. This was the only one that I ended up getting. And this was such a good palette in its day. I absolutely loved this palette. I don't know if it still performs. It's been a minute. Oh, it looks like it's still it's still swatching nice. It's been a minute since I used this palette, but I absolutely loved it. I loved it. The formula was so good. So yeah, I don't know if I'll keep it or not, but I probably will. Just really nice. And I love how they put this like purple Happy Hour, that was a shade, like just like randomly in there with like all the neutrals. And the shimmers are so, so good. Like, and like, I don't know. I miss this brand. I do miss, like, see how happy I get when I talk about this kind of thing? I do miss this brand. Like, like Nutrition Facts. That's on the back. Like, this brand, Glamlight, they just really, really knew how to work the packaging. They had some of the cutest packaging in the industry, if you ask me. And I don't know. I like this brand. I loved this palette. In at number 11, very strong palette, your Glamlight Martini. And then in at number 10, see, I knew I wouldn't have as many problems counting backwards from 11, is the Give Me Glow Sweet and Sticky. So this is another Give Me Glow palette, but this one is much more superior to the Summer Vibes. It's a neutral. I might have this again in my neutral countdown. It's unavailable. It is discontinued. Actually, they discontinued a lot of their palettes because I was on their website the other day before I did this video. But just to like give you like, see how nice that is? Like their shimmers were just like off the charts. Like I remember, that's this one right here. I remember them being so, so good. And the ones, even though they're good in the Summer Vibes, they're not as good. Although the mattes, I believe, in the Summer Vibes, if my memory serves me correct, are pretty good. But if you like a neutral palette, this one was so, so nice. It wasn't big. Like it was very, very easy to use. You couldn't do a lot of looks, but so what? You know, it was what it was. It's discontinued. It's long gone. It was the Sweet and, I don't know if it's long gone, but it's not here anymore. It was a Sweet and Sticky. I put it in at number 10. Am I going to keep it? I'm probably going to declutter this. I cannot tell you the last time I used it, and I don't see myself using it, but I think it was really, really nice. And then at number 9, here's the Star Wars palette. This one is still available. This is, again, not my favorite. You'll see my favorite Star Wars palette in a few minutes, but at number 9, right? This is sad. At number 9, Star Wars. I think it was just called Star Wars. This one is a little bigger. The other Star Wars palettes were 9 pans, so this was bigger. This was 12, which is bigger than 9. Wait. This is 14. No. This is 15. Oh my God. I need to go back to school. I need to go back to like the 4th grade. This is 15. This is 15 palette. 15 pan palette. They didn't do a lot of these. Maybe that's why I'm being thrown. They do a lot of 15 pan palettes now, right? It's not me. But anyway, this palette I thought was really, really good. I did do a video on this one. I will post that one down below because you can still get this. I think this formula is really good. I don't know if everybody liked it, but I liked it. And it's kind of neutral, but then you got the reds and the blues. It really gives you the Star Wars theme. And the packaging, phenomenal. It's like from the 70s. It's the cast from the 70s. I think Harrison Ford. There's a young Harrison Ford over here. Come on. You need a palette with a young Harrison Ford on it. I like this palette so much. Number 9, ColourPop Star Wars. Very good. Am I going to keep it? I don't know if I'm going to keep that one. Okay. Only because I never use it. And I want to have a minimum amount of palettes that I keep strictly for collector purposes. I don't have all the Star Wars palettes. I'm not planning on getting all the Star Wars palettes. So that one's up in the air if I'm going to keep it. But in at number 9, right? In at number 8. In at number 8, this is a palette I have never spoken about on this channel because it's discontinued, and it was discontinued when I bought it. I think I bought like the last, like it was like they were phasing it out. But yes, in at number 8. In at number 8 is by Nomad. This is Haunted Europe. So this is also appropriate for this time of year. And I am probably going to display this one. It's, I don't know, can you see like the cover? It's like one of those, you know, they do for Halloween where it changes. And it's really, really nice palette. I like the color story. They did away with this one, like I said. I think they did another Haunted one if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. This is the only Nomad palette I own. It's not very used. I think I used it once, but I was impressed. Like, I like the shade names. I like how detailed they are. I don't know if you can see, but like the pans are like so detailed. They have like designs and like spider webs and stuff like that. And the formula is actually really, really good. And it's really, really good. And it's such like a nice fall palette. It's like on the darker side, but you have your neutrals, you have some grays, you have some purples, you have some oranges. I mean, this is a very, very nice fall palette. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's not available. You can't get it anymore. But yeah, the formula is really, really nice. I would love to try more from this brand. I don't know why they discontinued this. The only thing I know, I'm pretty sure they did something like it. Let me check, one sec. Ghost Town USA is the palette I'm thinking of. That is like their new Halloween palette. To be honest with you, I kind of like the tones in this one better, but you know, it is what it is. Speakeasy, Chicago Speakeasy palette. I've been hearing a lot of good things about that one. A lot of good things. But yeah, I really, really like this palette. This is another one we're gonna display. Okay, so number 7. In at number 7 is my Blended Bunny Cosmetics palette, the Dollhouse. Do you remember when I did this video? I'm pretty sure this is still available, so I will post my video on this down below. Wait, let me make sure it's still available. Guys, not only is it available, it's on sale. It's on sale, so if you wanna pick it up, I would pick it up. I will post my video down below that I did on this palette. I had both my dolls in this palette. I took this really cool picture that I actually sent. I think I sent it to the, no, did I? I don't know. For some reason, I was like, I can't remember. I did something with that picture. It was like a picture of my dolls looking in the mirror at themselves, but like the angle I got of them I thought was so, so good. So anyway, this is the palette. It's called the Dollhouse palette. There was a shade in here called the Attic, and at the time I was living in an attic, so I thought it was like so, so cool. All of the shades are named like after things with dolls. So you had Lace, you had Pin Curls, you had Harlequin. What is up with the Joker 2? Guys, that movie is getting such a bad press. I'm such a Harley Quinn fan, but I have to tell you, like to me, like Margot Robbie is Harley Quinn. I know it's a different genre and I do like Lady Gaga, but when I saw the coming attractions, I just thought, no, this is not going to work. And I was right. So anyway, I don't know what, oh, Harlequin. That made me think of it because there's a shade in here called Harlequin. I don't know, I absolutely adored this palette. It's like pastel-y, but it's not pastel-y. You have like this row of light colors and then they went like deep, like mid-tones and then deeper, and you had like your shimmers up here and then you had a down here. These are more like shimmers, and what do they call these? These not super, they have like the same kind of formula as Super Shocks, but they're not, obviously they're not Super Shocks, but it's similar to a Super Shock. And the way they group their palettes, I love it because it's like, here is a color story, here's a color story. It goes like vertical. I just remember loving this palette. I haven't used this in so long, but it's so, so good. And I love the theme because it was the dollhouse. And like, I just love the whole thing. I was so excited when I used this. This was a palette that brought me so much joy, and I'm not going to be decluttering it. But I'm not sure if it brought me as much joy as number 6, guys. If you were there, you were there. When BH Cosmetics launched their holiday collection, I'm going to say this had to be somewhere around 2022, if not before that, because BH Cosmetics is no more. Well, it technically is still around. It was purchased by Makeup Revolution. They came out with a couple of palettes that didn't really go anywhere, and now they just have a few on the website that you can still purchase. In its day, guys, BH Cosmetics was so good. I actually had the shirt. You could buy the BH Cosmetics shirt. And I did a ranking of all my BH Cosmetic palettes. It was like one of my very first videos. I used to love BH Cosmetics. I thought they were so, so good for what they charged, for what they did. And in 2022, they had, in my opinion, my humble opinion, when I look at how good something is, guys, I take into consideration the price because it's important. It's important what you pay and what you get. And they released what I think is one of the best holiday collections of all time when they did the Naughty and the Nice palette. Now, the Nice palette has long been forgotten, but the Naughty palette, this was so, so good. This was so good. It looks really big. A lot of people don't like big palettes. This is the first of 3 Christmas palettes, by the way. I have 2 Christmas palettes in my top 5, and I'm sure you know what they are. But this palette is so good. It looks overwhelming. It looks huge. It looks ridiculous. But it's not. Like when you break it down, it worked so well together. It had such a great formula. The colors were absolutely stunning, and you had like everything you needed was right here. From the shade names, which were so cute, like Rudolph, Very Merry, Ornament, Secret Santa, they were all named after, obviously, Christmas. It's a Christmas theme. And you had like your neutral, like you had a gorgeous pink shimmer, a gorgeous green shimmer. I don't know why I'm talking this palette up. It's long over. You cannot get this anymore. You haven't been able to get this one in a long time. But guys, let me tell you, this palette was something like 12 bucks. I got it on sale. I think at its most expensive, it couldn't have been more than like $15. That, for the quality that this palette had, that BH Cosmetics had, I mean, what they did was so good. I don't know what happened to them. Like, I don't know why people stopped liking them, or if people did stop liking them, or if they just couldn't compete anymore. I don't know what happened to BH Cosmetics, but whatever happened to them, it's a damn shame, because they used to come out with stuff like this. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen anything this good that brought me this much joy for that kind of price for a long time. They did a phenomenal job on this palette, and there's really not a whole lot I can do with it. I probably at this point will declutter it. It's so old. But it was great. It was really great. Let's have a moment of silence. Okay, my top 5 favorite themed palettes. In at number 5, we have another Christmas palette. We have another Give Me Glow palette, and that is the Christmas Morning palette. Guys, do you remember this? This thing was so hard to get. This is another one, unfortunately, that's been discontinued. I'm telling you, they discontinued most of their palettes. Unless they're gonna bring them back. Never say never. So many palettes get discontinued and then they get brought back. This palette is kind of a mess. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. It's not like I use it all that much, but I don't know. Maybe it's like the formula. The formula is one of those formulas that it's like a little bit chunky, which I like. This palette is so beautiful. It's only 8 shades, but it's just so easy. It's such a one and done, even the way it's lined up with the matte and the shimmer, and the matte and the shimmer. And when I say shimmer, oh my goodness, look at this green shade. I mean, so this is what I mean chunky. It kind of goes all over the place, but I mean, that's a shimmer. I mean, look at this. This is Santa's sleigh. And I am not giving you guys the finger, I promise. I mean, come on, seriously. It just doesn't get any better when it comes to shimmers. And this is a shimmer formula that I'm talking about with Give Me Glow. So I tried to get this palette, guys. I don't know how long, like even like the finger where I did the swatching, look at that. I tried to get this palette for years. I was finally able to pick it up like in the middle of July one year when it became available. They used to have well, I guess they still have a list. I used to be on the list, and like they would send you an email when the palette relaunched, and then I would go and try to get it, and it would already be sold out. It must have happened to me 3 or 4 times, seriously. Like, it happened to me at least 3 times. And then I was able to finally get it. And I was so happy. I don't know why they discontinued this. It says To You from Give Me Glow. This was such a cute Christmas palette. That's my number 5. I'm so full of glitter, but what the hell? I'm like taking another break. Number 4, this is my favorite. This is one of my favorite ColourPop palettes of all time and my top Star Wars palette. This is The Mandalorian, The Child palette by Star Wars, by ColourPop. This palette is so good. It is on the neutral side. It's like a green neutral, but I don't have enough green palettes to do a green neutral ranking, so it's falling into the theme palettes. But guys, this is probably one of ColourPop's best palettes of all time, my opinion, but this is a strong one. It's just so cute. Colors are so beautiful. It's not like, if you're not someone who's gonna wants like bright greens, but you do kind of want a green, it's like a neutral green. It's not like over the top. It's just, the formula is phenomenal. This palette was so good, so good. They did a Sage palette, which was similar to this, but like in the color story, but nowhere near, I thought, as good as this one. So honestly, guys, like I said, this is a keeper. This is such a good palette. It's still available. I don't think I ever did a video. This palette has to be old because I remember writing something back when I had my website. that's going back. That's probably about 2019. I remember writing something about this palette. So this palette is on the older side. So this has to be, I don't know how it performs anymore, but it's really, really good. So this is my number 4, but it's not the top ColourPop palette. I have another ColourPop palette coming up. But in at number 3, we have my last Christmas palette, and that is the Merry Christmas palette by Odin's Eye. Guys, do you remember when this first launched? You could not get it, but I know for a fact, I don't know a lot about what happened last year, but I do know that they relaunched this last year, along with, I believe it was what, Christmas Eve? It was Merry Christmas and Christmas Eve, and then last year they came out with a few more Christmas ones. But the first year that they launched this was a year before that. It was just this and Christmas Eve. I only had this one. I wanted to pick up Christmas Eve. I might pick it up if it becomes available again this year. But in the end, I only purchased this one. This has to be like the most Christmassy palette I've ever seen, from the packaging, which is gorgeous, to the color story. I mean, it like screams Christmas. It's like actual reds and greens and golds, and it's just so pretty. Christmas Eve had more of a cool tone snow theme, if I remember correctly. It was more like purple bluish. But I just thought this one was so beautiful. And the formula was so good. There's like this random pink shade in here, which I kind of like because it's so cute for like the holidays. So if you remember when this launched, you could not get your hands on this. So many people wanted this palette so badly. I was really lucky to get it when it first launched, and they had a second launch. So when I first got this palette, I said to myself, I'm not going to do a video because there's no sense in doing a video. It no sooner came out, you couldn't get it anymore. So, I mean, I don't get things before they come out like a professional YouTuber. So by the time I purchased it and got it, you couldn't get it anymore. But then they were going to do a second launch. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make my video. By the time I made my video, they had announced the second launch. By the time I edited it and posted it, and it was only a couple of days in between, it was gone. So even though I made it because you could still get it, by the time my video dropped, you couldn't get it anymore. And I actually mentioned it in the video. And then when I did my declutter that year, I talked about something that honestly, guys, it makes me sick. And it does happen all the time. If you're on Mercari, you will see people trying to sell palettes that aren't available, that are discontinued, that people want for ridiculous sums of money. And that's what happened with this one. All of a sudden you saw it pop up on Mercari for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, which is crazy. I think this palette was what, 20 something bucks, maybe 30 bucks. How much does Odin's Eye charge? They're not overly expensive. I saw this palette on Mercari. I think somebody wanted like $300 for it, $400 for it. Guys, please, no matter how bad you want something, don't fall into that. My opinion, that should not even be allowed. To up a price so much of a palette is crazy. Crazy. It shouldn't be allowed. It is allowed. What I thought people did that year, and I'm still suspicious, is just purchased a lot of them and then tried to resell them. Because, I mean, that thing sold out within hours. And guess what? It came back. It did come back. So you can still get it. It's actually sold out right now, but I believe they'll bring it back. Don't feed into people in Mercari selling their palettes for way more than they're worth. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be. It is a good palette though. Okay, number 2, and this one I always ranked first on my ColourPop rankings, which I can't do because I don't have any new ColourPop palettes, but this is the Designer Princess palette by ColourPop. This is my second to the top. So this is my second favorite theme palette. This palette is so good. There they are. There they are. They're the princesses. And then when you open it up, it's one of that cardboard packaging that I simply love. And they have signed it. So you have like all their signatures, and then there is the color story. It's such a nice, like simple, neutral color story, but this palette performs like so well. I remember watching someone, I can't, like, look at that. I keep watching the same damn shade. I keep watching these silvers. But this was from Christmas morning, and that's from the Disney Princess palette. I mean, the ColourPop Princess palette. They don't look that different. I remember watching somebody, I don't know who I was watching, and they were gonna declutter this, and then they started swatching it, and they were like, oh my God, I never realized how good this palette is. I think a lot of people feel like that. They just don't realize how good this palette is. This palette has such a beautiful formula. Besides being such a beautiful, like neutral, toned down color story, I'm sorry it's reflecting on you guys, and like the whole princess theme, it's just such a great palette. And guys, you can still get it. It is on sale, in fact, on ColourPop's website. Seriously, pick it up. This is a beautiful one for the holidays. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Number 1, my favorite themes palette of all time continues to be, and forever will be, you can't get this one anymore either, sorry. I looked at BH Cosmetics, it's not available. I don't know why. This is probably the best palette BH Cosmetics ever came out with, and that's a big statement, but I'm standing by it. It is the Blueberry Muffin. Once upon a time, they came out with a line of palettes that were modeled after, I believe, breakfast, if my memory serves me correct. There was like a brunch, there was something else, and there was the Blueberry Muffin. It's like a mimosa or something, right? Oh my God, guys. This palette is so good. I'm sorry, this is another one that's going to glare. But this, I mean, the color story, the formula, this was one of their mirrored palettes. Do they always make mirrored palettes? I'm trying to remember. It's this palette, phenomenal. It's blues. I don't know how many of you wear blues. I don't wear a whole lot of blues, but it was blues, but it was toned down. It was also like these gorgeous neutrals, like these grays. This shade Yummy, it was so pretty. It was like a pink. It was just like, I don't know. There was something so unique and gorgeous about this palette. It was, I don't know. It was a moment. That's what it was. It was a moment between the browns and the grays and the blues, and everything just came together and worked so well, and you didn't have to really be into blue eyeshadow to love and appreciate and be able to wear this palette. It is not easy to make a blue palette that's wearable. Do you know what I mean? Like, how many people are gonna, in their everyday lives, wear blue eyeshadow? I mean, you really have to have a reason or a place where it's, I don't want to say acceptable because that's probably the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying? Like, most people in their everyday lives are gonna wear something calmer, something more neutral, something whatever. And even though this palette was blue, it was neutral at the same time. It was like it could be easily be an everyday palette because of the other colors that it was mixed in with, and everything went together. And they just don't do palettes like this anymore that work so well and are unique and have a cute theme and are cheap. I mean, how much were these palettes? What was this, like 10 bucks when it came out? It couldn't have been more than that. It was just a moment that has not been recaptured since, and I doubt ever will be again. Such a good palette. My favorite themed palette. One of my favorite palettes of all time. The Blueberry Muffin. And you'll see that again on the neutral. Will you see that on the neutral? On the cool tone neutrals? Let's see. It's really not a cool tone neutral. No, we're not going to put it in the cool tone neutrals. But if it was going to fall into a neutral, it would be cool tone. But I guess in the end, you'd have to call this a blue. You'd have to call it a blue palette in the end, but it really wasn't. I don't know. It was just so unique. It was so cool. It takes the #1 spot. What do you guys think? That was fun. That was so fun to film. I think it was fun for me because it's been a really long time since I sat down and spoke about palettes. Like, not where I was just doing a review, but I just spoke about like some of the palettes that I've used over the years and some of the joy that they really brought me. So that was a really fun video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you'll share with me what your favorite theme palettes are. And if you agree with me, do you think that some of these palettes, they just don't make them like they used to? Well, I don't know, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, your opinions, your comments. Leave it all down below. I want to thank you so much for joining me. And if you did like the video, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel. We talk about it all in the apartment. Can't say the attic anymore, guys. But if there is anything you want me to talk about, try, whatever the case may be, you can certainly let me know. And if I can, I absolutely will. And guys, once again, thank you so much for joining me. And as always, please take care of yourself. Please take very good care of yourself so that you can take care of someone else, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.